They've hijacked nukes, built space lasers, and even tried to flood Silicon Valley. But no matter the plan, Bond villains never just shoot him. This is every James Bond villain explained. Part 3. If Blofeld was the brains of Spectre, Emilio Largo was the muscle. In Thunderball, Largo was Spectre's number 2. Instantly recognizable by his eye patch and his love of sharks. Literally, he kept a pool of them in his villa, feeding henchmen to them when they disappointed him. Largo's plot was peak Cold War nuclear terror. Steal 2 NATO nuclear warheads, blackmail the world for $100 million in diamonds, threaten to nuke a major city if payment didn't arrive. Simple, direct, terrifying. Largo was ruthless but also loyal to Spectre. Right up until Bond ruined everything by turning his underwater operation into a spear gun free-for-all. His end came not at Bond's hands but at his own mistress's, proving even eye-patch villains shouldn't underestimate their girlfriends. In Quantum of Solace, Bond battles Dominic Greene, an environmental tycoon who proves you don't need nukes or sharks with lasers to be terrifying. Just a monopoly on drinking water. Greene is a member of Quantum, a shadowy organization that's basically Spectre with better branding. On the surface, he's a wealthy philanthropist saving the planet with green energy projects. In reality, he's engineering coups and cutting deals with dictators to control the world's most precious resource, fresh water. His big play? Help overthrow the Bolivian government, support a ruthless general in exchange for total rights over the country's water supply. Not oil, not diamonds, water. What made Greene chilling is how plausible he felt. He wasn't building space stations or brainwashing supermodels. He was cornering utilities, hiding behind eco-politics and smiling the whole way. And in the end, he didn't die by Bond's hand. Bond gave him a can of motor oil in the desert and left him to his fate. When they later found him, Greene had swallowed it. One of the most quietly brutal endings in the entire series. Dominic Greene wasn't the flashiest villain, but he might have been one of the most realistic. Because the idea of someone owning the water you drink isn't just a Bond plot. It's already happening in the real world. Not all Bond villains blow up cities or build space lasers. Introduced in Casino Royale, Mr. White was the quiet, unassuming middleman who turned out to be part of Quantum, and later revealed as an arm of Spectre itself. He wasn't the face of evil. He was the fixer. The kind of guy who cleaned up after Le Chiffre's failures or slipped a bullet into anyone who asked too many questions. Unlike most Bond villains, he wasn't flamboyant. No Shark Tanks, no monologues. Just a man in a suit, always in the background, always pulling strings. But his story took a turn. By Spectre, 2015, Mr. White was a broken man, dying from radiation poisoning, hunted by the very organization he once served. His final act wasn't one of loyalty to Spectre, but of betrayal. He gave Bond the thread that led him to Blofeld, and through his daughter, Madeleine Swan, he left a legacy that shaped Bond's final story. Mr. White wasn't the loudest villain, but he was the connective tissue. The whisper behind Le Chiffre, Greene, and even Safin's world. In a universe of grand schemes, his power came from staying quiet, waiting in the dark, and pulling the right trigger at the right time. In The World Is Not Enough, Bond faces Renard, a terrorist leader with a literal bullet lodged in his brain. Doctors couldn't remove it, and as it slowly worked its way through his skull, it destroyed his ability to feel anything. No pain, no pleasure, no fear. On paper, that sounds like a superpower. Renard could take a bullet, burn his hand, or fight hand-to-hand without flinching. But it also meant he was a ticking time bomb, slowly dying, with nothing left to lose. Renard's plan? Steal nuclear material and trigger a meltdown in Istanbul's pipelines, creating an energy monopoly for his lover and co-conspirator, Elektra King. Yes, that's right. Renard wasn't even the main mastermind. He was Elektra's blunt instrument, driven as much by obsession as ideology. What made him chilling wasn't just his invulnerability. It was the emptiness behind it. He wasn't flamboyant or greedy. He simply didn't care. And when you strip away greed, fear, or pain, what you're left with is pure, unstoppable chaos. Renard proved that sometimes the scariest villains aren't the ones trying to take over the world. They're the ones who feel nothing at all. In Live and Let Die, Bond squared off against Dr. Kananga, a Caribbean dictator who moonlighted under the alias Mr. Big, a Harlem crime boss. Think of him as a one-man franchise. Politician by day, drug kingpin by night. Kananga's plan? Flood the US with free heroin, wipe out the competition, and then rake in billions once everyone was hooked. Forget world domination. This was drug domination on a global scale. But Kananga wasn't just clever, he was theatrical. He used voodoo imagery, tarot cards, and superstition to keep his empire in line. His henchman Baron Samedi, a voodoo priest, blurred the line between fear and folklore, making Kananga's empire as much psychological as it was physical. And then there's his death. Bond forces a compressed air pellet down Kananga's throat, causing him to inflate like a balloon and explode. Yes, that is canon. The villain literally popped like a parade float. It might be one of the most ridiculous Bond deaths ever filmed, but it cemented Kananga as one of the franchise's most memorable villains. Equal parts political manipulator, crime boss, and theatrical showman, Kananga was proof that Bond villains could be just as colorful as they were cruel. From Dr. No's metal claws to Safin's nanobots, Bond villains have always mirrored the fears of their time. In the 60s, it was nuclear war. In the 70s, it was oil, drugs, and technology. The 90s brought media empires and rogue agents. And today, we're staring down cyber warfare, pandemics, and billionaires who want to colonize space. The next Bond villain won't need a volcano lair or a shark tank. They'll need algorithms, satellites, DNA databases. They won't steal nukes, they'll steal information. And in a world where data is power, the most dangerous enemy may not be a man with a golden gun, but a man with a golden login. Because if Bond villains have taught us anything, it's this. The world's greatest threats are never just in the shadows. They're hiding in plain sight, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And when they do, we'll all be waiting for James Bond. So, who was your favorite villain? Let us know what you think in the comments.